everybody, this is Steven.
Hey guys, I'm Allan.
And welcome to Paint Talk with That One Painter. Today we are answering one of life's biggest questions. Not really. Do you need primer? It's not one of life's biggest questions, but if you're a painter, it is one of the questions that you are asked the most often.
Yeah.
Do you need a primer when you paint? The answer is maybe. Right?
Yeah, depends.
Depends.
Depends on the situation.
Maybe, depends, possibly. Any of those.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about a few of the primers that we like and in the situations, the scenarios where we use them. Allan, what's this one here? We got
This is Kills, tried and true. This is the water-based.
Kills 2 water-based.
Mm-hmm.
Kills 1 is the oil-based, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kills
the
original.
red label.
Red label. Don't use that one that often.
Not too often.
This Kills 2 blue label is probably one of the most popular primers. It is a general multi-purpose primer, so it can be used for a number of different things. It's really, honestly, what we've used it for is spot priming.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got like maybe we're painting an interior of a home and you have a few spots where we did drywall patches,
Yeah.
or if we're doing exterior and there's a few boards that were replaced, you can use this for those few spots or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good spot primer. It's not the best for taking care of
Right.
like water stains and things like that. So
minor stains, things like that, it works okay.
minor stains, if you've got maybe one wall in the house is really dark and you want to put a coat of primer on, maybe it's a good primer for that. That actually brings me to another common question we get asked, which is paint and primer in one.
Yeah.
What is that? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And what do we do about it, Allan? What do we think about paint and primer in one?
I think a lot of people are confused about that. We get a lot of funny questions about paint and primer in one, and customers often think that because it's a paint and primer that somehow it's going to cover magically in like one coat or do something above and beyond. And the truth is that really when they say paint and primer in one, it just means that paint is usually already self-adhesive. In other words,
it's self-priming.
It's self-primed. So in other words, back in the day, old school paints, a lot of times the paint without primer wouldn't stick to certain surfaces.
Or stick to other paints. Yeah.
Or stick to other paints. And so you always had to primer before you painted. Nowadays, technology's gotten a little bit better. There's better surfactants on the actual paint itself. And so most of these primer and paint in ones doesn't really have to do so much with the coverage as much as it has to do with the adhesion and how well it's going to stick.
Yeah, so it seemed like for a while every paint brand was advertising paint primer one, paint primer one. And then that's actually kind of dwindled down. Nobody's really talking about it as much now, because really what it is paints have improved over time and they've become self-priming, meaning that if I'm going to paint this wall again here, I don't need to put a coat of primer. I can just put 2 coats of paint.
Right.
But that's the thing, is still most paints, if you're having a drastic color change, are going to take multiple coats.
Yeah.
If it's a paint and primer in one, or if it's self-priming paint, or if it's just a high-quality paint, they all still take multiple coats oftentimes. That paint and primer one thing doesn't mean much. So we also brought along, well, actually to that though, the self-priming ones, they also are a little more stain-resistant and stain-blocking, but again, no more than this, and this one isn't even fully stain blocking. Even though the can might say it blocks stains, it blocks some, but not all. So like water stains is one of the things we run into a lot. Yeah. So you're gonna need an oil-based primer like this one here, this Pro Block water-based or oil-based. Sorry, this oil-based here, or the Zinsser oil-based, which we use for different situations. These two are really similar. This comes in a gallon and in spray cans. The reason I brought this one in is because the Pro Block spray can primer, I love Sherwin-Williams spray cans. Yeah. Now, it's a weird thing to fall in love with, but when you're spraying a lot of primer and you need it using a spray can,
your finger gets tired.
Your finger gets tired, but not with Sherwin-Williams. Their spray cans are less effort. Actually, it's a spray anyway comfort tip, so it's a more comfortable tip, and it's 40% less effort, so it's easier. But they're not even going to put that on here.
It's not a joke.
It also puts out more volume, so when you're spraying, more primer is coming out. Yeah. So if you're a painter and you're doing some spot priming, or you have to maybe prime out one thing with a spray can, this stuff is my favorite. Yeah. So I brought it in just to talk about that. Just to both of these are really good for stain blocking, water stains, things like that. Yeah. So Then we also have this Zinsser cover stain, which is an oil-based stain blocking primer, but more than that, it's also an adhesive primer, so it bonds really, really well. Alan, what do we use this one for a lot?
This is going to be preferred on particularly cabinets. We really love this on cabinets, but also for homes that do have a lot of heavy stain, a lot of odor, cigarette smell or smoke or whatnot.
It works decently for those two.
We use preferably cabinets.
Week in and week out. Like every week we have a cabinet job. We're probably using this one, or Sherwin-Williams has Extreme Block, which is similar to it's actually they're trying to make a primer like Zinsser. A lot of our painters still prefer the Zinsser cover stain. And the reason is obviously it seals up that wood, doesn't allow any can-ins or any stains or whatever to come through. So it's doing a great job sealing it, and it adheres really well to varnishes and stuff like that. A lot of cabinetry has that old varnish on it. After you sand that a bit, you dole it down, you put this Zinsser on it, it sticks super well. And then the reason our painters really love it though is it's easy to sand.
It's easy to sand.
Because a lot of times you spray out the primer on a cabinet and then you sand it again to get that primer really, really smooth, so that when you spray on your paint, you've got a nice smooth coat on there. The Zinsser is super easy to sand, and that's really the reason why we love it.
Well, we mean when we say that too, because I think a lot of times you hear that and you're like, what do you mean it makes it easy to sand? If you do a cabinet with this type of paint, like a latex or like a water base like this, when you're sanding it, it gets kind of gummy. It gets kind of chunky. It gets kind of weird. And then this guy here, when you're sanding it, it's just nice and fine and almost stays like almost like a, not chalky so much, but it's very soft, very powdery. So you really get it. It's really nice. So that's what we mean when we say it sands well, is that it just helps that wood, especially when you're doing something that's kind of like needs to be real nice and smooth, like trim or like cabinets. Because this is also a good primer for like those board and batten accent walls and things like that. Basically, if you want it to look real smooth, you want to use a primer that's going to cover the stains well, but also sand very smooth and very clean.
Then when that top coat goes on, you have that really nice sprayed finish. So these are 3 primers that we use often. So is anything you want to add about the primers? We're trying to answer a painter's life's most important question.
No, I think we've covered it all, man. I mean, you know, do you need a primer? Depends on the situation. You know, what primer to use depends on the situation. There's honestly, we could stack up this table with another 5 or 10 primers and still not showcase every single primer that we use.
We'll do another video with some of the other specialty primers that we use for, like, when let's say there's a lot of peeling on an exterior of a home, or if we're dealing with like level 5 smooth drywall, there's specialty primers that
rusted metal
is another one. So we do, there's different primers, we use different situations. So
shellacs, there's all sorts of stuff.
But when it comes to, I've got these walls and I want you to paint them a new color, do we use primer for that? No. Most of the paints we use almost all the paints we use are high quality paints that will cover in 1 or 2 coats, often 2 coats, without a primer coat. And there are times where maybe the whole house, we've been in some homes that the whole house is painted dark brown. So in those situations, it's just saving money to go ahead and put a primer coat on everything rather than trying to do 3 coats with some white paint. Severe color changes, sometimes we will. Because, for example, we wanted to paint this wall behind us white from black. You're going to have to put a whole lot of coats of paint on there. Obviously, primer's more affordable. Even with the best paint, that you can't cover that in 1 coat. And you can save some money sometimes on bigger projects by putting a coat of primer and then some paint on it. So there are times, but most of the time, you don't need primer unless it's a specialty situation or you're spot priming or you're dealing with varnish or woods or something like that. So we hope that answers the very important question, do you need primer? Thanks for listening to our video and stick around for some more.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.